And then pick the tool path, right? So, and if you've got a specific question about your file, get that open, and we'll look at that specific question also. But let's see if we can step through. See if we can step through getting a part and aligning it with the stock material. And to do this, for me to get a part, I think I'm just going to go to the tutorial and just download those. This one has something to download. All right. And so one of the things we did here, so we moved all the toolbars around. I can't find what I'm looking for. Okay. All right. So when we created this file, we put in a default layer. Where's the stock? There we go. All right, so this is what you're trying to do, right? Is have your stock be lined up with your part. So let's make it. All right, so I've got, did I make a copy? Okay. All right. All right, so let's say when you when you bring your parts in to Esprit, they're just randomly aligned relative to each other like this, right? So you've got this block here that represents the part we want to make. So we've got this block here that represents the part we want to make, and we've got this here that represents the stock material we're going to cut it out of. And if you look at it, you see the stock material already has that boss on it. So we actually need to make sure that we align the boss on the stock material with the boss on the finished part, right? So first off, what operations do you want to do? How do you want to cut the part? So before we bother to even align the parts with the stock material, we got to figure out what operations do we want to do and what do we want to have facing up in the machine tool. So what do you guys want to do first? What do you got? So face off the top surface, and actually, I think if we look at it, the boss is there and that top surface exists. I don't think we need to do that operation at all. Somebody already did that for us. Why the hell they took the part out of the machine, I have no idea. They should have left it in the machine. But let's say, all right, here's how that could happen. So you're not sure how it could happen before you get to the CAM software, but here's how it could happen in the machine tool is you could be working on the part. Somebody can hit the room e-stop when you're in the middle of your program and the room shuts down. Maybe fire alarm. Maybe there's a fire in the building and you have to evacuate, right? And maybe before you get to come back and finish making your part, we had to use it for M1800, so we took your part out of the machine. So that's how you could get that situation where you're in the machine. By the way, 2 times since I've worked here has there been a fire in this building. 2 times. One of them was in the wall of sort of like my office. It was like above my office, not quite my office, sort of down the building a little bit from there, pretty close. There was people working on the roof, and they dropped some smoldering stuff down in between the 2 brick walls. And there was already stuff that had been dropped down there, and it all caught on fire, and it was burning in between the brick walls for about 4 hours before anybody noticed. It's funny because it smelled like smoke all day long, and we just kept thinking somebody was using the laser cutter and not turning the vent on. But yeah, all right. So I think what we want to do is have it with this face up, because if we do that, we can cut a contour around the outside. We can drill the holes so we can make the pocket. So there's a bunch of different ways you can do this. You could align the 2 pieces with each other and then set the origin where you want it to be with the face up. I usually like to try to get the part set where I want it and then move the stock material to line up with it. So to do that, if we want to align the origin, and for now, I'm going to put the origin in the center of this face on the top of the boss because I want to align my stock with that anyway. So I've decided that in advance that I want to do it that way. So if we go here, you can say edit, orient part. And so we want to align that face with the Z-axis, right? I think I need to have highlight and sub-elements turned on because I just want to get that face. And then edit, orient part, align Z. Does that do it? So did, if we zoom in, you'll see that Z-axis goes right through the center of that face, but it's not on the XY plane. So there's two ways, there's many ways to do it. We could determine how far it is above the plane. I know because I shifted it in order to do this example, but you wouldn't necessarily know that. It's going to be where it is relative to where the designer put the origin in SolidWorks or whatever program created the thing. What I can do next is I get that face still selected. I can do edit, orient part, and align X. No, it's not going to do it. No, move origin point is the one we want to use. But if I try to move origin point now, there's nothing to select to tell it where I want to put the origin point. So I hit escape to get out of that. And I'll select the solid, right click and copy, smash, and create a wireframe. And so now it has made geometry that define all the edges. Right, so that's geometry instead of a solid. It's just the way Esprit keeps track of those things. And then I can do edit, move origin point, and it gives me choices to select. Come on, select the center of the circle. There it is. There it is. I had it. It's a pain. You guys saw it change the mouse once, right? It's easy to find a corner. Highlight.
One question.
Yeah,
If we make a point in the center of the circle,
that'll do it.
Will it always stay there when we bring it apart?
It depends what you translate. I'll do that example in just a second here. But thanks for the idea of creating a point. I'm going to go to geometry and tell it I want a point at the center of that circle. It puts a point in the center. And then I can do edit, move origin point, and select that point. For some reason, this computer is not. I think I'm guessing somebody went here to options and input. So there's got to be some way to change the sensitivity for selecting those points. That normally when you get sort of close to the thing you want to select, it gives you the option to select that. That was kind of weird for me. But all right, so we've got the origin here. I can now select the STL, copy. So here's the problem. If we try to do the orient part again, it'll rotate the coordinate system to the part, not the part to the coordinate system. So if I selected this and did the orient part again, it'll just flip everything around so that it's aligned with this now. So instead of that, we're going to do the wireframe smash again. And it's convenient because they're different by 90 degrees. So here, if I select the STL, copy, and rotate, 90. I never know if it's 90 or negative 90. I guess, and if I'm wrong, I do it the other way. And we want it to be about this axis here, so I'll select that axis. And so what it did is it left the geometry that I created with the smash because I only selected the STL. So I'm going to undo, put that back there, then select all of it. And so instead of so when I get this copy, rotate, open, if I just use origin for rotation axis, it'll just rotate at 90 degrees about the Z axis. And so we don't select that. When we don't select that, it asks us down here, select the center of rotation. And I'm going to select this axis. And now they're aligned in the same orientation, but not in the same place. So here I can, so that's, and it's still selected. It's got the geometry and the thing selected. I can copy that and translate. And instead of knowing how far to translate it, so I could measure the distance in X and Y between the different points. And I'll show you that method in just a second. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just translate and use 2 points. Say OK. And so it says select the first point. So what do you want to move? And so I'm going to select this corner here. And then select the second point. And I'm going to select this matching corner over here. It'll move that to line up the whole thing with those 2 corners. So if you get them in the same orientation, you can use the select 2 points to move it. If you have geometry, it only lets you select points from geometry. It's in the manual, so it's a feature, not a bug. But it's kind of an annoying feature sometimes that you can only select from geometry. Because in reality, that's the only thing you need the geometry for. And so when I'm done with something like that, I usually switch the selection filter up here to geometry, select all of the geometry and delete it so it's not in my way later. Command, Control, Z. Okay. So if I didn't want to use the 2 points or couldn't for some reason, I could figure out what the distance is in X and Y. And the easiest way to do that is to get the properties window open. And then select any of the features. So I'm going to select that line. And it gives me an X, Y, Z starting point, midpoint, and end point. Just pick the start point. It doesn't matter. But the start point is -9 in X, -9 in Z, and 2.8 minus 2.875. And so we could now, and what's I guess the best point to choose would be the one that's in the center that we want lined up, right? And so I can pick that. But that's a pain in the ass because sometimes with an STL model, instead of making an arc, it does individual line segments that mimic the arc. So we're not going to be able to easily find the center of this. What if we really wanted to? If we really wanted to, we could go to geometry, say I want to draw a circle from 3 points. One of the points is that midpoint. One of the points, just pick any 3 points that are on the circle, right? And so now we drew a circle. That we could eventually select. There you go. We could make a point at that center, draw a point at the center. Select. Select a circle, make a point at the center of the circle. And now I've got a point. So I just had to zoom in so I could get it to stop selecting those endpoints. And then we could select all of that. And so if you use this selection filter, it makes it easy to make sure you pick the thing you want. You have to remember that you were using the selection filter and turn it off. But that doesn't keep you from doing anything. It's just annoying. And copy. I wanted to see what the distance is from here to this origin. So first select the point. It'll tell us. So 10.87. Anyway, you could copy those numbers over and use the XY. Let's see. Did that help? Anybody else with something on this topic? So a lot of it is just pick the origin, get everything aligned with the same plane, and then translate it so that it's on top of each other. There's a pretty good trick that if you're doing multiple setups. So who's doing multiple setups on the same part? You guys are. So there's a pretty good trick to use there. Let's see if I can get a file that starts well with that. All right, we'll do this 3-axis part. I don't really want, yeah, we'll get these out. File, new. So this is another feature because it's in the manual. It's not a bug. One of the things it lets you do is you can have template files. So you can have saved things like the machine setup. I think this one has, if I go to View Properties, Project Manager. So I always like to have the Project Manager and the Properties window open. And for some reason, I always like to have the Properties window below the Project Manager. My personal preference doesn't actually matter. But if we go here, there doesn't seem to be anything in this template. Let's just be the machine format. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to download the SolidWorks file, and I'll download or open the drawing. All right, so here's what the part looks like. If you took M1800, you've seen the part before. And so if this is the part, what do we want our stock material to look like? So let's start with drawing the stock material. Anybody? So if this is the part, it's 3/4 of an inch across here, 2 1/4 inches tall, and 3 inches across. So what should our stock material be? I'll go over to Esprit and we'll draw the stock material. Yeah.
Yeah, 3-inch wide builds. There.
All right, so we want it to be 3 inches wide. What's the problem with making it 3 inches wide? Yeah.
You have no material to cut.
Yeah, you're not going to touch the end when you do that. In reality, we redesigned the Y block part to be smaller than 3 inches across because we wanted to use that 3-inch wide stock material. But let's say we got to build it to the print. If we got to build it to the print, we want something bigger than 3 inches. What's a common size we might get bigger than 3 inches? Maybe 4. You want 4? I'd go with like 3 1/4, 3 1/2, me, because I don't want to waste too much material. But let's call it 3 1/2. So if I want to make my stock 3 1/2 inches wide, I usually just use the drawing tool here. I'll make a line, and so this one, there is just a line from one point, and I'm going to select the axis and say, yeah, I want to make a line that's parallel with that axis. And then it's asking me down here in the bottom corner, it says enter the distance. So you can say how far away from the axis do you want it to be. So I'm going to say 3.25. Pops up the little window. I'm going to hit enter. And now it's asking me which side do you want it to be on. And I don't really care, so I'm going to pick this side. And then I want to make another line that's just on that axis. So I'm going to have the distance be 0. It still asks you which side, even if it's 0, so just click. And so now I get those two that are 3 1/4 inches apart from each other. I'm going to repeat that, so it's 2 1/4 tall. So let's go 2 1/2. So it already remembers 0, so I'll do that one first. And then what did I say? 2 1/2, 2.5. And so I've got a box that can represent my solid or my stock. So in the drawing tools, there's keep and there's trim. I'm going to use keep. I'm going to keep that. I'm going to keep that. Keep that. Keep that. And just so you can see that it did it right, I'm going to turn off the view of the axis for just a second. And so it drew the box there, just that it puts both lines on each other.
you show how you dimensioned that again?
Yeah. This is why it's not a good solid modeling program. So what I did was I put the lines where I knew I wanted them to be. Just like if I was drawing on paper with like a ruler and stuff, I make my little mark at 3 inches and then I draw a straight line there. That's how I did that. Once you have created it, like in SolidWorks, you create something that's boxy like, and then you say how long to make the edges. You can't do it in that order in the Esprit modeler. Yeah.
Is there a way to put in reference dimensions within
Yeah.
Esprit?
Yeah, right next to the Create Features toolbar over here is the dimensioning toolbar. And so I could open the dimensioning toolbar, and then I could say I want to make a dimension. Here. To here. And so you can do that. It always shows the dimension to the active plane. And right now the active plane is XYZ, so you're at Z looking down at the plane. We could change the active plane. This dialog here sets our view. Right, so top. So we're looking down at it. We can go over here, and so we could change it to ZXY. It doesn't change the top view, but it will change the plane that the dimension gets drawn in. I can do that same dimension again. And so you can't, it's not showing where to put it. But if I click here and put it somewhere, and I go to the front view. No, I don't want front. Left. So it put it right there on that axis. So I don't use the dimensioning thing a lot. Sometimes I do, especially, I really only use it when I'm making lab instructions and I want to show how big something is in the instructions. I'm going to put this back to UVW. Who has, or sorry, XYZ. Who has had Esprit give the error, need another axis of rotation when you try to simulate something? You had that? You've had that? Was it mill or lathe part?
No.
Milling, yeah. So what happens sometimes is you inadvertently change which plane is active. And so if you inadvertently change which plane is active and you make the chain, it's going to think you want the tool to come in from the other side. And so let's just do that. I'll make a chain on this. So while I've got highlight turned on, it's asking me, do I want to select that line? If I hold down Shift when I say yes, that's what I want to select. Come on. He must have been doing something. I was trying to make a dimension. When it does that, I just press the escape key 5 or 6 dozen times. Usually cancels whatever you were doing. So if I want that, all of those connected points, I hold down Shift, right click, and then it selects all of the touching lines. So that's kind of a cool feature. I'm going to do that, and I'm going to make a chain just by hitting auto chain. And so that put that chain feature around the part. And in the properties window for that chain feature, if we select the chain and we go to machining, it says work plane XYZ and work coordinate XYZ. So it's in this work coordinate and it's aligned with the XYZ plane. You could change that to YZX. So if I go tools, I want to use that chain and maybe make a facing operation. So I'll say I want to make a facing operation. I want to make a facing operation. Oh, got to select the feature. Select the feature. So I get that selected. I want to make a facing operation. I want to use the face mill. And since we're not actually going to cut this, I'm not going to bother to put in feet and speeds and all that stuff. But I would say okay, and it should give me that error. Inappropriate features were selected as input. It's not the error I was expecting. But cancel. If I change the work plane to XYZ and do the same thing, it'll make the toolpath. I was expecting it to say need another axis of rotation. Sometimes you get that message also. I guess in a facing operation, it says inappropriate features were selected, but it means the same thing. So you can do that. I think what I was going to show you here, what we were going for though was making stock material, right? So let me delete that facing operation. So there's a few different things we can do to make this stock material. I could go to the simulation parameters. And I could say create stock from extrusion. Select the feature. And select this chain. As they add, say okay. And so then when you do play, it'll create an extrusion. I think in the settings that it used when it did that, and that stock that we created there, it only exists in the simulation world. It does not exist in our, it's not a real thing that we can manipulate. It will stay in the simulation relative to that chain. And simulation parameters, we could change. So this one is going +5, -5. So we could have it go plus nothing and minus, it was 3/4 thick, right? And so it's got to be a little bit bigger. So let's make it 1 inch. And you can have it be bigger to the right or smaller to the left also. And I'm going to update that. If I clicked add, it would have just created another one, and it would have had 2 pieces of stock in there. And if we hit play, it'll show that there. View the WX. No, it doesn't show. Okay. So we've got a piece of stock. It's not very satisfying because you can only see the piece of stock when you're in the simulation mode. So what I usually do is instead of doing that, I usually get my chain, or you can actually do it without the chain, but I'll view the toolbars, solid modeler, and I'll do a extrusion. So it doesn't have a lot of solid modeling tools, right? You can do an extrusion, a revolve. If you have something, you can put a fillet on it. You can edit a fillet that you put on it. You can put a chamfer on it. You can split faces. I have no idea what that means. Never tried it. Don't think I ever will try it. But at any rate, I'm going to select my chain, make an extrusion, and oh, it's going up. It's 1 inch. I can reverse the direction. I like to have the 0 on the top of the part rather than the bottom of the part. So, okay. And now I've got something. I've got a thing that I can move around and look at while I'm working on the program. So I prefer to do that. So we've got stock material here. We can load in. I'm going to go ahead and save this. Save as. We can do file, open. Maybe I didn't download it. No, I did. My block's all apart. Okay. So file, open. Must be this one. This computer doesn't have SolidWorks on it. Well, it doesn't recognize the file format, so that tells me that this computer doesn't have SolidWorks on it. That's okay. I didn't want to use SolidWorks.
Well, it's searching for all Esprit files.
Oh yeah, but SolidWorks, it's on the list. It's all files that Esprit knows how to open. Is what that means. Open. I click open. Shit. Lost all my tools. Lost my solid model. I'm a friggin' idiot. Right? Who said that? Right? Who wasn't so calm as to say shit? Who said something worse? I have, usually. So yeah, I don't think undo works. Control Z. Yeah, you can't undo that either. Which is why I saved it first. Where'd it go? I saved it. You guys saw me, right? Temp. I don't know why I wasn't on the recent list. No, I don't want to save the changes. No. I got my stock back. I got my tools back. I even got operations. Cool. Now to do file, open, just like before, except I'm going to make sure I select merge. And that will add whatever I'm opening into the file. Y block, open. Woo! Yeah. And this is what you have, right? Now we need to line those two things up with each other. And so let's do what we did before. What side do we want to cut first? What do you guys want to do to cut this? Yeah.
Probably cut the base where the V is first. That way you have something good to clamp on.
Cut this part first?
Yeah. Well, that face.
Or that face. So have that part facing up. So you cut with this part facing up?
Could, or you could cut with it laying down. You know, or cut on the side of the end mill.
Okay.
Get that radius.
Yeah. Yeah, we could do that. All right. So we're going to have the end mill come across here and make a V. Basically, right? Okay. Perfect. So that so they're in the right orientation, right? If we go to top view, they're in the right orientation. They're just not lined up with each other correctly. That's the easiest thing. All right. I know what to do. Anybody have a suggestion on the best way to align them? I think I've decided what I want to do. All right, then let me show you what I want to do. I want to align the center of this plane, right, with the center of this plane, and then offset it up just a little bit. I mean, up by like that direction into the computer screen. So to do that, I'm going to first select my solid, copy, I'm going to smash, make my wireframe. Sometimes when I do this, I create another layer and I call it geometry, and I keep all the geometry on that layer. In reality, what I usually do is I just delete all the geometry as soon as I don't need it anymore, because I can always create it again. And that way I don't have little dots and stuff floating all around. I'll do the same thing to my solid here. Copy. Wireframe. Okay. And so we'll put a point at the center of this circle of the hole. So geometry, point, center, right there. And then I think I don't know why it drew that line. Oh, because that was the beginning of the chain. I guess that's why I did it. I'm not going to count on it drawing that line. I'm going to do a line with 2 points. I'm going to go from this corner to this corner. And so the midpoint of that line is the center of that plane, right? I remember that from what, 10th grade? I think it was 10th grade. Geometry was 10th grade, I think. 9th grade, maybe? I don't remember. It was a long time ago. Geometry teacher. This is a really nice old man. Like stooped over, hunched back, dark hair, or like gray hair, really Mr. something. I remember it was Mr. I think it started with an H. I don't remember his name. But Dan rode my school bus. Dan was a senior. Dan was one of the cool kids. Leather jacket, kind of cool kid, like the Fonz. And so Dan was a senior, and he was taking the same freshman math class I was taking. So he's one of the cool kids. And the two of us would sit in the back of the room and talk to each other, which maybe explains why he was still taking that class in senior year. But the teacher didn't pay much attention. So we would sneak out, go to the cafeteria, get coffee and a fried dough, because our cafeteria had fried dough with cinnamon and powdered sugar. Man. And then by the end of class, we would go back and pick up our books. I don't know if he didn't notice that we were sneaking out or didn't care that we were sneaking out. But anyway, that's what I remember from geometry. That, and we had to like have theorems and proofs and stuff. I didn't like that part, which is probably why I snuck out. This statute of limitations, right? I can't get in trouble. It's not going to go my permanent. Oh, it is on my permanent record now. It's on the internet. That is the permanent record, right? Anyway, so let's align this. So I want to select my solid. And since I'm going to delete the geometry anyway, I don't care. So I'm just going to select the solid, turn off the make a point thing by hitting escape. Select the solid, right click, copy, translate, use 2 points. Okay. First point. Right there. Second point. Right there. But it moved, it didn't move the geometry. It's okay. I'm going to select geometry here, make all the geometry go away. So those round things are not geometry. I don't know what they are. I'm going to select these things, whatever they are. So I want to select that orange oval, but I keep accidentally selecting my solid. So I'm going to go to View Masks. And I'm going to turn off solids. And then I might as well just get rid of all this stuff. So delete. All right, now turn my solids back on. I want to shift this so it's in the middle of the part, not on the edge. So I'm going to select it, copy, translate. That's the Y direction. So make sure that's 0, Y. We were 1/4 of an inch bigger. So I'd do 1/8 of an inch. 1.25. Now it's in there. But I can't see it anymore because it's in there, right? That's a pain. So I'm going to create a layer. New. Stock. I'm going to select this one. And under general properties, I'm going to change the layer to be stock. And then I can, whatever in the layers thing, whichever one is highlighted in red is the one you're going to, new stuff you create is going to go on. I don't want to put new stuff in the stock layer. So I'll go ahead and double click on default, and then I can turn off the stock layer for now. So, oh, but that's not where we want the origin, right? When we set this up in the machine tool, where do we want the origin to be? Easiest would be in either one of the corners of the stock material or the center of the stock material on the top surface, right? So let's go ahead and do that. So turn the stock back on. And I'm going to go ahead and turn the stock layer on. And so I deleted all my geometry, so I'm going to right click, copy, and I'm going to smash that again to create more geometry. Smash, wireframe, okay. Go to rotate it up like this. And so again, if we want to put it in the center of this top here, I just go ahead and make a line from 2 points. That one. I could move origin point, edit, move origin point, and find the midpoint of this line. Instead of the origin is in the top center of the stock material. All right, so that makes it easy to set up. Top. I don't want to look at the stock anymore, and I don't want to create stuff on the stock plane anymore. It didn't go away when I unselected it because I have it selected. And so it remembers that as soon as I click in space and go away. All right, so we want to make this V here. The easy, oh, and I don't install a modeler anymore. All right, so if we go to the Create Features toolbar, we can this one, part profile. So if I use the part profile and I select the Y block here, I can say OK. And then if I turn off my solid, you can see that it made a projection of the part on the 0 plane. And so you wanted to do the operation that comes across here and does that first. Yep. So we can do that. I'm going to create an auto chain. I'm going to select this endpoint here. It's asking me choose the next element. Really what I want to do is select the line in the direction I want to go. So I'm going to select this line, and it says select the ending element. And if I go over here to that endpoint, it'll make a chain, but it leaves that chain open. So at this point, I could continue to make the chain around the part of I want to do, but I don't want to do that. Do we? Do we want to go all the way around? Just this endpoint piece, right? So just hit stop. Tell it I'm done selecting. And so now it knows that the direction we want to move the tool is aligned with the arrow. And I did that because I want a climb mill. And so the end mill is going to spin clockwise. So I want it to go, basically, when you're climb milling, if you're cutting on the outside of the part, you want your chains to go in a clockwise direction around the part. All right, so we're going to do that. Once we have that, let's go ahead and select the chain. You can go over to the features bar here, and you can select the chain here and it selects it. Or you can make sure you have highlight turned on. You can come over here and you can select the chain like that. So either way, you want to make sure you have the chain selected. We're going to create you want to use a contour. Okay. We'll do a contour. Select a tool. I guess we're going to use the 3/8 end mill because it's the only end mill in there. And again, since I'm not actually going to run it at the machine, I'm not going to bother to pick feeds and speeds. How many passes? I guess I am going to pick depth of cut, but not feeds and speeds. So how many passes you want to do? So anybody know with this end mill how much step over we want to do? How far into the part? Anybody know off the top of your head? Yeah.
Is it like 10%?
Let's use 10%. 10% is pretty conservative for step over. I think we could probably do, well, the end mill can full slot if we have to, but 10% is pretty conservative. Let's say we want to do 10%. We're going to keep the cutting force down. We're not sure how well we're going to clamp this part maybe. Or maybe it's made out of plastic so we can't clamp it very tight. Who knows, right? All right, so let's do a 10% step over. So what's 10% of 3/8? It's pretty easy. It's 0.0375, right? That one I can do in my head. Even though I used to skip out on math class. I can still do that one in my head. So how many times does 0.375 go into 0.125? 0.0375. Yeah. 0.0375 goes into 0.125 how many times? Here's what I don't want to do. I don't want to figure that out. Because I want to make code, right? I want to get to the machine tool. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pick a number that I know is way bigger than I need. Let's say 25 rubbing passes. Well, that would be boring to watch, right? But at least I didn't have to do any math. If you got plenty of time, go for it. If we double click and edit that though, if you scroll down, I think it's on strategy, scroll down, stock automation. Say trim. Say, okay. Nothing happened. An error occurred while trying to build the stock for an operation. Why is that? I know. I'm asking if you guys know. It's because we didn't tell. So we made that piece of stock, right? We know it's the stock, but we didn't tell Esprit that it was the stock. So say, okay, go over to our simulation parameters. Solid stock from solid. Select the feature. Turn on the stock layer. View solids. Select it. And update. Okay. Now, trim. Okay. It still didn't do anything. We need to right click, go to machining, and tell it to rebuild. Oh, come on. What do you mean verify my stock definition? I did that. This is why when I make those videos that teach people how to use Esprit, it takes a long time. Because I edit this part out. Select the feature. I did. Oh, I know what it is. It's not the stock definition. Anybody guess what it is? I figured out what it is. Let me change the view and you'll guess what it is. It says it couldn't find the stuff to eliminate because it couldn't see where the toolpath interacted with the stock because I had 0 depth set. So if I come back over here and change the depth, total depth, how far did it go? 1 inch? If we're doing 10% step over, we can probably go the full 1 inch on this first pass. Oh, well, it did 3 passes. All right, and the thing I wanted to show you was that it would automatically just leave the passes we need. If we decided we wanted to do less than 10% step over, here, percent step over. We never set the percent step over, 10. There you go. There. Now it looks like 10% step over. And so when we simulate, it goes really fast. First thing it does is it starts to make that little V. And so it figured that out on its own because we told it to use that stock automation to use trim. Finish the simulation. Is this all we want to do when we're in this view? In this orientation, do you want to do anything else? You could. You mean so like a 3-axis machining? Oh, you want to rotate it so that it's the other way. Well, there's no holes. You can't see the holes from here. Right, so we go to the top view. So that's how it is in the machine, looking down from the spindle. So we could, if I turn off the stock, so we could make this shape, right, around here from this side, except it's got all the curviness to it. So we could actually do a 3-axis operation, and we could come down, but we couldn't go all the way around. We could only do half of it to come around like this. I've made parts like that before, where you do a 3-axis operation that goes across it like this, and then you flip it over and you do another 3-axis operation that blends into it. It's really a pain because you've got to get it to line up perfectly when you flip it over. So I think this is all we're going to cut in this orientation in the machine. So we go ahead and run the simulation real fast. It real fast. Come on. Okay. So I've got my simulation done, and so what I'm going to do is save stock to file. So I'm going to click Save Stock to File. Save. Oh, file name. Op1. Oh, you know what it is? It's really stock for Op2, right? That's what the stock's going to look like for Op2. So let's call it Op2. Save. And so right now, that Op2 stock is perfectly aligned with the finished part, right? The part we want to make. So I'm going to load it back in. I'm going to get my stock. Oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to save. I'm going to save again just to make sure that I saved. And if I really cared about the part, I might save one more time just to make sure that I saved the first 2 times. Then I'm going to do File, Save As, and I'm going to call it Op2. All right, so I saved the first operation after I finished making it. Now I'm saving Op2. I'm going to do File, Open, make sure Merge is turned on, get my Op2 stock, and load it in. And you can't see it because it's buried under the other stock. So I'm going to take the original solid that we created. I'm going to delete it because I've got my Op2 stock here already. And so this is in the stock thing, but we're not going to cut in this orientation anymore, right? So what I'll do is go ahead and delete the chain, which deletes the cutting operation. And because geometry is a pain, I'm going to go ahead and delete all the geometry too. And then delete. So now I've got my stock, and it's aligned with my part already. I just need to fix the orientation. So you want to put it with this side up next. Is that right? Yeah. So what's the best way to make that side be up? Well, I could know what the angle is, right? It's 90 degrees. So just select everything, unselect the only geometry, all, select everything. Now I deleted the chains first, right? Because any chain that we rotate 90 degrees around an axis is going to then be pointed in the wrong direction anyway. So right click, copy, rotate, move, okay, this way. I always go back to isometric. So that wasn't the side we wanted up, right? That's typical for me. You get a 50-50 chance, and I try not to use up all my good luck on Esprit guesses. So I'm going to right click. So I can undo and I can change it to -90, or I can just redo it and change it to 180. And where do you want to put the origin? Where do you want to put the origin corner? In the corner? This corner?
I was thinking top left.
Top left.
I think it's really not good.
It doesn't really matter which one. Our ability to align the features with each other when we're in the machine tool is really going to depend on how well we can find that corner and how. And so what I often like to do is use the same point for the origin in the different locations. So if we're always using the same point, we're always locating the same point, then when we flip it in a different orientation, we're likely to get the machine to know where we are. So if over here the edges, so if these were like bandsaw cut edges or something, we probably wouldn't want to try to locate off of them. If I knew they were bandsaw cut edges, what I probably would have done is when we made this V feature, I would have also made a feature that I could locate on this side after I flip it up. Even if that wasn't going to stay on the part, I would have just maybe gone around it once or come down a little bit. Since we can assume that we have precision ground stock material that's exactly square. Yeah, that doesn't happen in real life, but sure. But programmers do it all the time. So it is useful to create a feature in the operation that you're doing that you can then locate from the next operation. And we have one, right? This V. We created that V in the past operation, and we could locate it in the machine tool just by probing sideways into it. As long as our part's not crooked when it's in the machine tool, if the probe hits it from one side, it's the same distance. So you could use the, what do we use? The probe a pocket. See how full it gets. But we could probe that pocket. So a couple people just came. I don't remember. There's more people now than there were before. So we're just going through an example of reorienting the parts, and what the only actual question from the class we've had yet is about aligning the parts and stuff. So I'm going through it. We did a couple examples of that, and then we're just machining this part together. I think there's one here. I think, is there one more back in the corner too? Somebody else shows up. Yeah, there's one more.
Are you just gonna repeat?
I'm gonna just keep going for what people ask. I'm gonna finish this one, I think. Is that useful? So, unless, yeah, if you guys are good. Unless you had something specific you want to ask before you leave. He helped you already? All right, perfect. All right, so where are we? So I would put it in the center. So I would put the origin aligned with this surface, the top surface, and in the center. Just because I think I can locate that based off finding the edge of the V in the machine tool once I put it in there. If I was really smart, when we made the V, we would have made a feature on each side also. We would have just come down a little bit like that, just so we would have had something to probe off of that would make it even easier to locate. Because then you could do probe boss or probe X pocket or X web, Y web to find it. Because it's much nicer to locate off of a part, off of a surface that you already machined. But at any rate, so, all right, so some of you guys just got here. So I'll go through how do we find the center of our stock material. So we just went through, we've got our stock material aligned with our workpiece material. And now we want to be able to move the origin point. And so what I'd like to do is just draw a line from this corner to that corner. And the center of that line is going to be the center of that plane across the top. And so to do that, I'm going to select the STL, right click, copy, and smash, and create a wireframe. And what that does is it gives me geometry to select for drawing a line. I'm going to create a line from 2 points. Select that endpoint. Really don't know why this computer is having so much hard time picking endpoints. That endpoint. And so the center point of that line now is the center of this part. And so file, edit, move origin point, and find the midpoint of that line. And so then the origin is right there. So what's the next operation we want to do? Yeah.
Did we put the stock in already?
Yeah, the stock's in. You guys want me to back up and start over on this part? No. What's that?
How much have you done so far?
One operation. We'll get back to starting from scratch with stock. So right now what we're doing is we're moving the stock from one operation to the next. But I'll get back. I'll circle back around to that. But let's. All right. So we've got. I'm going to turn off my stock layer so I don't have to look at it. So here's the features we want to make. So I think what we want to do is we want to drill and tap those 2 holes, and we want to make a contour that goes around the part down far enough so that we could hold it by that and stick the other side up when we make the next feature. Does that make sense? All right, so in order to make that contour, we need to, we'll probably use the part profile again like we did on the last surface. So we go to the top view. So I'm in the top view. I'm going to go chain features, part profile, select the part. And so it gives us this option to create a chain on the profile. And so we could do that. Last time we didn't use that option. We just wanted to have a box. But I'll go ahead and create a chain on the profile. And say, okay. And then if I turn off, I've got my masks here. I'm just going to turn off the solid so it's not blocking what we're looking at. And so it created a chain around the outside of the part, of the shadow of the part. And it also created chains around the 2 holes where we're doing our tapped operation. Now we don't need chains around those 2 holes, but we do need to know where the centers of those are. And so what I can do here is create a P-top, so a manual P-top point-to-point feature. And I think it'll let me select the center of that chain as my point. Will it? Nope, it won't. All right. Let's create a point from geometry. need these two chains. So I'm going to delete that chain and that chain. Delete that point that I made that I didn't need. I'll turn the solid back on so we can see it. So we've got a chain that defines the outside boundary of our contour. And what we'd like to do is be able to drill a hole in the center of each of these. And so if I go back to my features toolbar, the hole recognition looks good. Let's see what that does. And so just selecting the solid using hole recognition to find those two holes for us. So do you want to drill and tap first, or you want to do the contour first? Drill and tap? Okay. So just make sure we got all the tools here. We do. I've got my drill mill, my number 7 drill, and my 1/4-20 tap. And so what I'm going to do is select the feature, go to the machining toolbar, go to drilling. I'm going to use the chamfer mill to spot drill. Total depth. So we don't have to go very far. We just want a place for the tip of the drill that follows to know where to go in. But we could also make a chamfer for our tap tool, so there'd be a chamfer around the hole at the top while we're doing this spotting operation. So I'm going to say use chamfer diameter, yes. And then it's going to ask me what diameter do I want the chamfer to be. And so if it's a 1/4 inch hole, what, 0.26 maybe? So 0.26. And it will set the depth to go then based on knowing the geometry of the tool and how deep it has to go in order to make that diameter chamfer. And just like the other operations, I'm not going to bother with the feeds and speeds right now. We're just checking to make sure we got all this. So I've drilled the hole, or I've spotted the hole. I'm going to select it again, go back to drilling. And this time I'm going to select the number 7 drill. And I'm going to peck drill. And say okay. And I'm just going to make sure that the drilling operation goes through the part. It does. And the reason I didn't have to put in the depth for that second drilling operation is because when we defined this based on the hole, because we used the hole recognition, it knew what the depth of the hole was by knowing where the bottom was. If you want to set the depth, so say you created a P-top feature just manually by selecting points, you can select that feature and you can go in here to the properties and you can say depth and you can set that depth. Maybe I want to go further. Maybe I want to go 0.75 instead of 0.56. So I can change that. And then my drilling operation. Oh, you know what? I do need to double check the depth on that drilling operation because we still had used chamfer diameter selected. So I need to turn that off on the drilling operation.
I haven't moved on to that.
And so because I clicked OK before, I had to tell it to use the system default, which means to use whatever we've set the depth to. If I hadn't clicked OK before, it would have been fine. All right, so that drill will go through like that. So we've spotted, we've drilled. Now we want to tap. And so again, take a drilling operation. We're going to tap. We're going to select the quarter 20 tap. And so if I went 0.825 inches with the drill, I don't want to go 0.8125 inches with the tap because it'll hit the bottom of the hole and it'll break. There's no place for the chips to go. So let's make that a 0.6. So the drill goes deeper than the tap does. That gives you room for the chips to fall out into the hole when you're tapping the hole. And so if we simulate, just to make sure we got all that right, slow it down a little bit. Error creating stock. Why is there an error creating stock? Anybody? Anybody see the mistake I made? I know what it was. Yep. Oh, the layer. I can turn the layer back on. The stock's there. What we didn't do though was tell Esprit that that was the stock. Right? So I need to go back to my simulation parameters. Just like last time, I didn't tell Esprit that was the stock. I'm used to seeing that error message because that's my standard operating procedure, is to click simulate and then realize I forgot to tell Esprit that the stock was there. It's weird because I hardly ever forget to put the workpiece in the machine tool. But I always forget to tell Esprit that the stock's there. I'm going to use stock from solid, select feature, this one, update. Okay. Now let's simulate. And spots, it drills, and it taps.
Professor, one question.
Yeah.
Do you know what size screws jaws use? Anything else?
That hold the ones that hold the vice jaws in place. It's half 13 fasteners. You want to know which Allen key to use? You want to make jaws. Yeah, so you want to use clearance for half 13. You want to counterboard. Yeah, counterboard. After I say it, I wonder, wait, did I mean countersink? Nope, countersink is the Y-shaped one. Counterbore is the football shaped one, right? Hey, was there a big game this weekend? I also don't have TV, so I didn't watch it. Anybody know who won?
The Rams.
Rams? Anybody know who was playing in the game besides the Rams? It was the Bengals, right? I didn't know the Rams were the other team in the game. That's how much I was. But the Tiger won because it's the year of the Tigers, so I get that. I knew the Tigers were playing. It's pretty sad. The Rams won though, huh? Anybody watch? Okay. If I had TV, I would have watched. If I had TV, I would have turned it on.
Yeah.
But and you can see that it made that little tiny chamfer there on the hole. If we wanted that chamfer to be bigger, we could go back to that first operation and say, I don't know, 7. And simulate. And so it made that chamfer a little bit bigger. So, all right. So we've got now to do the contour around. And so I'm going to hit stop. I'm going to select the chain that defines the contour. I'm going to go to my machining. I want to do a contour. We're going to use the 3/8" end mill. Again, I'm going to pick 25 rough passes because I'm adventurous. And I'm going to make sure that trim is turned on for my stock automation. I click OK. Now, I don't need to do a 10% step over with this tool. I really don't. So I could go back over to my contour and change that step over to be 75%. And then let's simulate. So you think, is that part finished? I mean, is this operation finished? Should we go down that full inch like we did last time? We went down an inch before. We probably don't need a whole inch this time. But I don't think it's going to hurt anything. I think it'll work. All right. So just like last time, I'm going to click Save. Then I'm going to click Save again just to make sure I clicked Save the first time. And then third time's just for luck. Then save stock to file. And we're going to call this Op3 stock now. I'm going to hit stop. Now I already saved it, right? Like 3 times. I'm going to click save again just to make sure. And then I'm going to do file, save as Op3. All right, so first thing is I want to be in the stock layer and have that active again, right? I'm going to delete this piece of stock. Gone, we don't need you anymore. I'm going to delete all the chains and operations. Gone, we don't need you anymore. And now I'm going to do file. Oh, now what am I going to do? Before I do file open, what am I going to do? Quick save again. In case I forget to have the merge thing turned on, I don't lose anything, right? File open, and also doing that click save in case you forget to turn the merge thing on just before will maybe remind you to check if the merge thing's turned on. Op3 stock. So now everything's all aligned perfectly. We don't have to worry about that. We just need to get the orientation right. Is that correct? So really what would be nice is if we just rotate the whole thing around the x-axis, right? So let's do that. We'll select everything, copy, rotate, move, okay. Now we could move the 0. We could move the 0 up to the top of the part. If we wanted to, we could put the 0 up there on the top of the part. But what if we're unsure on actually how big the stock is? And with any real material, we might be unsure about exactly how big it is. If we put the 0 on the top, then when we finish making our part, we won't necessarily know how tall the part is. So if in this operation we keep the 0 on the bottom And we set 0 based on the bottom of the part by, there's a bunch of different ways to do it. One way to do it is to just stick the parallels out a little bit from the part and probe the top of the parallel. So the top of the parallel is touching the bottom of the part. The bottom of the part must be at the same plane as the top of the parallel, right? To within our ability to measure. So we'll leave the 0 at the bottom of the part here. And then we have the 3-axis operation to make the with the stem of the Y. Is that the stem? Sure. The skinny part of the Y, as opposed to the Y part of the Y, or the V part of the Y, as I like to call it. All right. So to do this, we have to define the stock, right? Let's just go ahead and remember to define the stock now. Go to my simulation parameters, stock, from solid, select feature, yes, update, okay. It simulate, it draws the stock, okay, that's what we want. All right, now let's go back to our default thing and turn off the stock view so we're not looking at it. So if we go to the features creation toolbar, what we want to do is we want to create a freeform feature. And so we want to say, where's the part? That's the part, right? Do we have any surfaces on the part that we don't want to cut? Not really. There's no surfaces we want to make sure that we don't cut, so we don't need to define any check surfaces. Where's the stock? Well, let's turn our stock layer back on and say that's the stock. I can turn my stock layer off. So that's the part, that's the stock. Say, okay. But okay. All right, so I've got my freeform feature. Now we could do the hole recognition thing again for the top to get our drilled and tapped hole. And so we might as well do that while we're here. So change, there we go, hole recognition. That one, say okay. And there we go. It also recognized these features down here, right? But we already made those, so we're just delete that one. But here we go. Oh, and I wanted to show you something really cool that that helps us here, because we're using all the same tools for all of the different operations, because we keep moving from one operation to the next and all the tools are already defined. This is really easy. So I'm going to hit save here again. I'm going to open up Op2 that's finished. And I'm going to go to the Operations tab. And so we've got drilling. So we've got the pack drill, or sorry, the spot drill, the pack drill, and the tap. I'm going to select the 3 of those. I'm going to right click and do file, save operations. I'm going to say drill tap. Then I'm going to go back to the file we're working on, Op3, in my features, I'm going to select the hole, right click, file, open process, drill tap. And so now it's going to crash because we didn't face the material off, right? But so we'll do our freeform feature and then we'll switch the order of the operations. So it does the freeform feature first. All right, so a freeform feature, I want to do, I'm kind of boring. I know for a fact that variable Z roughing works on this part. And I know for a fact that it works with that tool. One thing I want to look at here, though, is limits. I don't want it to go all the way down to stuff that's inside the vise, right? So we know we machined an inch here, but actually what would be nice would be to know how high is that lip there. I'm going to go ahead and click OK now so we get a chance to go measure that. Takes a second to find the operation. Come on, operation can't be found. What do you mean? Drag. So it's your stop. And then leave it slide. That's weird. That's weird. What does somebody think is wrong? Anybody know what's wrong?
Yeah. So, like, usually when I see this stop, I'll put this at that way. Your origin is at the top of the stop. So all you're seeing right, so the last thing.
Anybody guess what's wrong? I have a guess. That's the tool I wanted to use.
Why is the shanks?
It's because somebody was lazy when they defined the tool. That's why. But this is totally the tool I wanted to use. Because the people thought when they defined the tool that the only thing they had to worry about was the bottom of the tool. Because they thought that was the only part of the tool that was going to interact with the workpiece. Let's look at our toolpath again. He wants to start at the bottom of the part, right?
All of these SDLs, so there's no one.
So I think the problem is with the feature that I defined. I think somehow maybe the feature's upside down. So it thinks that stop. Don't want to do that. So I'm going to select the feature
Yeah, exactly.
XYZ, XYZ,
And then the last thing, because this is
XYZ, XYZ. I don't see anything wrong there.
Like grab all this stuff.
I'm going to delete the feature. I'm going to say variable Z roughing.
So that way we just chain right now.
Say I want to make
like
this part.
So like this circle here, so just here the chain.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't want that.
Okay. Can't cut this. So the error message is telling me that something's in the wrong orientation. XYZ.
Now you guys can start doing
Well, hard.
yeah. So ignore the stuff. You can change that at any time.
In that case,
For making change. So you guys know your speed. So let's go into Toolbar.
Our team uses PLA. I'm just trying to figure out how to use it. He may have already done this part, but we just need to figure out how to use it.
Yeah. Okay, so the chains will be the same in SolidWire for milling. So pretty much the same thing. Just make sure these three are signing on. For chains, usually the first thing it's going to want is like some functions. Doesn't matter. This,
you can't.
as long as they're intersecting.
So you just.
Yep.
Yeah, just kind of suitably, I guess, because the STL is already in there. Like it follows the contours. It follows it.
Yeah, so remember the S smash operation?
Yeah.
That dragged it in from the all of these from last week.
That's me. So as long as we hit every segment, it'll pull the line. Yep.
Yeah, so when you do something like this, you just like this, and you select this one.
Well, okay. I don't know why that doesn't work. Is figuring out why that doesn't work important to anybody in the class? Because I'm sure I could figure it out, but I would do it by just creating everything again. I'm sure I could make it work. I'm not sure I could figure out why it doesn't work. You want to go through that process and try it again? All right. What could it be?
Wait, Professor.
Yeah.
If I have, would you like help me with a specific question I have on my part?
Yeah, I can do that. Can you send me your part? Send me your Esprit file. We'll do it together.
Okay, it's Milton stuff.
Okay.
Just email it to you.
Yeah, it's probably the best. Yeah, I will turn off my screen share before I.
Weird stuff.
Stop screen share.
So,
Okay, I just
I guess maybe I will.
I don't think I marked mine. If it's not trimmed, considering the higher genes.
Haha.
So what it-
Picture. Okay.
Like,
Yeah, I get drawing, but it's all those drawings. Yeah, that would work. Make sure you're not messing with scale. Okay. Dumb it down. Yeah, that would be good. Yep. Yeah, something like this week is really. I think this is more range, yeah. And then once we do chains, we'll use.
Do everything down.
So we'll use this solid wire. Yeah. It's just the contour ones. So for these, play around, put it on, check yourself for some of these aren't. All of these should, like, a lot of them aren't changed. They just are what they are. And I can just check over this right once we read it.
Open.
Some of them are just like.
It's right there at the top.
So once you have it, so
Yeah, I know.
We, like, you start to change, click on the wire, you have to click on that, but it would be like,
Nope.
click around the whole thing, like, lines.
Nope, so this chain will be the only thing.
All right. So let's go ahead and look at the simulation.
Does this one. And you can't, it's not gonna link together chains like that. You would have to make a chain for the whole thing that you want the wire to do. So this will have to all be one chain. Going all the way around the
Just-
whole thing. You only have one operation.
So,
All right.
yeah, I tried to do like a facing operation. If you look at that cross face one chain.
Yep.
I
see
I
it.
wasn't sure
So
if
you
facing was the
definitely
appropriate
wouldn't use this
uh,
chain. It's gonna cut it off. Sure.
thing, but
Yeah, I'm not sure either. Let me find the operation.
How do I go from, like, just make this outline to this? Have those, these two separate, or-
All right. So you're here.
So, first part is gonna be a sharp line.
And your operation, where did you select it?
Oh, so I have highlight on right now.
what do you mean where?
Which means like if I select something. It's gonna
Oh,
ask
in
me
solid mode.
the whole question thing, like,
Okay.
this is what it meant.
Solid mill turn.
Oh, okay.
Facing operation.
Yep.
The tool.
Oh, so.
All right, so this is your tool.
Yep,
Yeah,
so
I
it's not
mean,
gonna go all the way
it
around.
doesn't necessarily have to be the 3/8.
But that was the one you used. All right, so the tool definition. And
That's the change.
So-
second change would just be the inner circle.
what Esprit thinks.
So if you drill the inner circle in the plate before you
So
get this
when I look at your
operation,
tool definition,
you can
C
set this as your origin.
is aligned with the
Yeah, and
axis.
then you could get like this really.
So Esprit thinks the tool is pointed in this direction relative to your part.
You don't care about that being dead center.
And the operation you told it to do
And then just throw it on.
is a facing operation, which needs the tool to be pointed in this direction towards your part in order to cut across the thing.
Okay.
So I think you can use that tool definition
if you did like a contouring operation, you just had it go across, because what you really wanted was the tool to go across like that anyway, right?
Sure.
Or across like this.
Yeah. So instead do contouring.
So I think if you did a contouring operation, the other thing you could do though is you could change the orientation of the tool.
Okay. I wasn't really sure like what the best way to like machine out the rest of that
Yeah.
feature
So if we
was.
so if you say let's call it an X minus tool orientation. I think minus is. I haven't bothered to figure out whether I want minus or plus because I can always tell as soon as I click simulate if it was the wrong one, and then I go fix it. But I think minus. So I say OK here, and then we go back to your operation, rebuild the operation. Looks the same, but let's see how it simulates.
Yeah. Now that I think about it, I think I would rather change the tool orientation.
Yeah, minus was the wrong direction. Do you see my simulation there?
Yeah, and if I change the tool orientation, then I don't have to use like I can do all of the shaping with just that bit rather than because I'm gonna have to use the one that points toward the center to like do those inside edges, like the. I don't know how.
Oh, so you want to keep that orientation? Yeah. All right. So let's go back to the tool and make it be
Positive X.
positive instead of negative. All right. So it still crashes, but at least it crashes, right? At least it lets it crash. And I can tell from looking at the toolpath that it's going to crash.
Yeah.
And we can fix that.
You changed it to axis orientation positive X.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the other thing
I think
is
I'm gonna
in
change
the
it.
facing operation, you can tell it which way to go.
Yeah. I think I'm also gonna switch to the 1/8 inch end mill. That way it's all one tool and one fixture.
That might be better, yeah. But
So first of all,
strategy.
so let's.
One way. It's been a while since I've used this, but somewhere here I can tell it the angle to go.
Is if you already have a layer.
Optimal cutting angle. But not
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still.
Just the
wood pass, yes.
or just load into stock. Not even stock load. It's not going to might have to smash.
That looks right.
I think it gouges the part.
Yeah.
But you can
Without-
adjust the position of the chain too. You can still with this tool you can still do a contour also and just adjust
Well,
the position of it.
If I use a smaller tool, will that maybe fix it?
Yeah, yeah, because I think I had to drive the center line of the tool down the chain. But you can
If
you
I
can
use a
play
small-
with those things, adjust
Yeah.
that.
Smaller tool, I can't do one pass. I gotta do
How big is the feature?
more than an 1/8 inch tall. It's like 1/4 inch maybe.
Okay. So instead of facing,
Just want to fix that.
instead of facing,
Yeah.
you could make a chain that defines the bottom there, and you could do a contour that comes up to the chain, so it never goes past it. So your facing operations will go. So a facing operation, you've usually got a part like this, and you want to remove material from the top surface of it. And so you take a tool that, and it goes off the end of the feature on both ends, and it overhangs usually on one or the other side this way. And you've got a square feature like that defines it. If you just did a chain feature that defines that edge of it, and you say do a contouring operation, you can have a tool that goes like this, and until it gets to that edge, it never goes past that edge.
And you only need that chain, that one.
Just one chain for a contouring operation, yeah. You don't need a closed feature for the contouring operation. The other thing, you've got a solid model inside there too, right? So the other thing that might work, and I haven't done one of these built-in parts for like 10 years. So I may be guessing on which operation is going to work the best. I personally haven't programmed it. I've watched other people do it, and I've watched their programs run. But I think if we, so the other mill turn.
Oh wait, sorry. We did model these. Yeah. Break a new layer. And just go first. Okay.
Solid mill turn. Okay.
Select those two and put them in that way. Yeah. Goes okay.
So we've got pocketing, contour.
Sorry, this is select the model layer. So you made those lines, they're just in the model layer right now. So if you go to just the selection of this one, and geometry. Yeah, and then select all. Cool, and then do the some copy and attribute to default. Yeah. Cool, and now we're going on.
Yeah, no, I think a contour is the way to do it.
They're all the same. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, depending on how you get one through. So if you were going to drill that hole beforehand, this would really be good. Yeah, that would be just like the word. Yeah, so. Is this one? Alright. For making shades. No. Nope, so you're good to go now. So you select this. So make sure when you do a starting point that it gives you that pop-up.
Yeah, so I would just make a contour that goes from, or a chain that goes from here to here. That's your base, the base of your thing.
And you can also just do the thing on there, chain, you can select something while you have highlight on. And then you hold shift and confirm. Looks like that whole outer. And then you can hold it and just go over that. Highlights. But also, I want to make a new layer to have like chains. What is that? No, that's just what I'm selecting.
I don't know if that did anything or not. It did. Cool.
So it's good.
I didn't know if I could highlight a chain and then smash and have it make geometry.
Just click
Now I know.
So if you do manual change.
So I just had that chain
And now you can select the lines.
there, and I select that.
By clicking it down. Yep, there you
And then do a contour.
Like, I couldn't have done this.
And I'm just gonna use the same tool
Close it up.
because I know that's pointing in the right direction.
So let's think about the steps. Step is knowing that which your chain is as pretty as 0.
Oh, that makes sense. My face.
Right, so if your face is right on the if
Ah.
your chain is right on the face.
That would have worked perfectly if I had told it to contour on the correct side of the chain.
You're starting that scroll down, starting that.
So get rid of the facing.
Yeah, since the 0 point is where the start of the chain is, probably want it to start above that, right? So above the
Yeah.
chain is.
This is the minimum.
Since your chain is
And so it gouged a little bit. I think that's just from where the chain definition was, and so you could fix that either by moving the chain over or by giving some stock allowance on the operation.
So, just click right here. on this.
And if you want to do the same thing on the other side of the part,
And then hold down shift. And then click it in. Now try doing options.
you could actually select the operation.
Yeah, that should, so you change more.
Click out here.
Copy. Select the operation. Copy. Now do we rotate? Use origin for rotation. But I think this will work.
And you're rotating the
And I'm
operation?
Yeah, I'm copying it 180 degrees.
I would definitely recommend throw it, don't do it.
And nope, I rotated it around the wrong axis. I wanted to rotate it around the Z axis, so I can do that. So, Control Z. We just named that. Rotate. Don't use origin. Okay, use this axis.
So I gotta
Now, I think it'll do both sides. Yeah. It did both sides. It still gouged the same on both sides.
I already did
We take it off.
Okay,
Okay, thanks.
how would you suggest, so like now that I have those two flat faces, how would you suggest hitting the curves on, like, eliminating those? Like on the remaining two sides? Would you do that with it, like,
What's it look? Where's it going? What's it supposed to look like?
not curvy, right? Flat. We'll say what? Use another contouring
Yeah.
operation? Okay. So I have to, at least for
I would-
the one closer to the part, like, that inside, I'd have to like pass through it this direct, like.
You mean down here too?
Well, there, yeah.
The same technique will work. You definitely put that smaller tool. Or you can do pocket. Grab pocket. Or just the same pocket. Solid filter and pocketing. Okay. Just define a box. Define a square that shows where you want the tool to go. You can have it be open on the two ends.
Right,
So
okay.
Go through. We can do this. And it defines both
Yeah.
ends.
Yep.
Okay.
I
I've seen plenty of people make cadence where they just left it round. Didn't even bother with the clarity. So the step up from what I've seen many people.
Yeah, I gotta challenge myself. If I left it round, I wouldn't even need the filter.
That's true. But yeah, you can use a pocket.
Okay.
And I would definitely get that 1/8 inch. The 1/8 inch end mill fits in there.
Yeah, I designed it for that, but I think his name is Nick, the PLA.
Since
Said
we don't
that-
have any.
No, said that you have to be careful. Well, she used a 16th inch end mill for one of her things, and he said you have to be like really careful because the spindle for that one can only do like 4,500 RPM, and right, he just
But
with
he's right.
a small bit you have
You
to
wanna
like
spin
take it,
faster.
yeah, pretty. So like you got to ramp down the like feed per
Yeah.
tooth.
You want to
pretty
do
low.
that? Yeah. It's you always have to be careful when you use those small tools.
Okay.
You do me a favor when you go out,
Mm-hmm.
pull the door closed so it's not wide open like that.
The shop door is it?
Yeah. the shop
Okay.
door.
Okay.
We're supposed to not be actually open for public use right now. The only reason the door was unlocked is because you guys were coming.
What's going on?
We're always closed on Mondays.
Because we made all of them. They should be back.
It allows us to do maintenance and stuff.
All right. How's it going? Was it slow? Do you have an example? Oh, that one. Yeah, we'll have to we'll have to work on that.
Yeah.
After we're on there. What have you tried so far?
Not much. So
Okay.
yeah, trouble. Well, there's two of these. There's one this way and there's one opposite.
Oh, that's easy.
Fine. Hopefully it's mostly the same thing. But the opposite.
Yeah, just hold the mirror up.
What's making you change the opposite of that?
All right, I'm gonna stop the live video, but I'll stay here.
I had a question.
Yeah, just a second.
Yeah, so I'll be back in like.
Oh, probably.